AI in the wider mission and vision of NEAR. Pew. I'm sure I can figure it out. Oh yeah. So vision of NEAR is to give all people control of their assets, data, and power of governance. In the modern world, people don't have mostly neither of the three. And when it comes to AI, if you look at this vision from the AI standpoint, if you think about all the recent technological revolutions that happened and shaped our lives, you will notice that in all of them, with a single exception of Web3, a small number of large profit-seeking companies have fully captured each of them, and they control all the profit, they control all the attention of users, and almost without exception, because their primary focus is maximizing bottom line, not optimizing for users, almost without exception, they collect, analyze, and sell users' data. And if you look at AI, nothing will be different in AI if we continue going on the current path. There's OpenAI and Anthropic who fully control today tier 1 models, with maybe a couple companies that have a chance of entering that stage. And if nothing changes, the whole AI landscape will be controlled by a small number of companies, meaning that all our data, again, will be going through a tiny, narrow set of gatekeepers. And we like to contrast this company-owned, corporations-owned artificial intelligence with what we call user-owned AI. And when we think of user-owned AI, generally it's an all-encompassing term which refers to the future in which users are in control of the tier 1 technology and its applications. I want to focus on two aspects of user-owned AI. The first one is for user-owned AI to be a reality, we need a sustainable path towards a future in which tier 1 models and tier 1 infrastructure surrounding the models is built for and for the benefit of the users, not large companies. And today, we do not have a sustainable path towards such a future. And the second is the applications of AI have to be deployed in such a way that data that users send to those applications is in control of the user. And I want to paint a picture. And at the core of any AI system is always a base model. And for the user-owned AI to exist in the future, we must have tier 1 base models that are open source and created by the society for the society. It is not the case today. And I'm not going to focus too much on it. I think in the short to medium term, there is no good solutions. And for the long-term solutions, today the focus will be something that is more within reach in the next couple of months, half a year. The bottom line is that training base models is very expensive, and orchestrating the amount of resources necessary to train a base model is an extremely complicated task, and a lot of effort, a lot of research, a lot of orchestration will have to go into creating it. But if you look at the ways people use models today, it has been shown on multiple, many times that if you, for a particular use case, if you gather, acquire, or create a data set that is representative of the downstream task you want to be using AI for, and you fine-tune the base model on this data set, the model will outperform a much larger base model that did not have access to a comparable body of knowledge of the downstream task. So specialized models fine-tuned on data sets annotated for a particular task is something that is very tractable in the short term and could be competitive with the tier 1 models controlled by gatekeepers. And I think a lot of effort today is put into creating, I call it agents here. People put a lot of different meaning into the word agent. The way I think of agents is, it's a Python script that has access to and is built around access to some sort of large language model. And agents allow you to have to get even more from smaller models, right? By applying it in a smart way, by doing chain of thought, you can get even more from a model after fine-tuning. And one of the very interesting applications of agents is connecting models with a very large body of data stored in a database that model has access to via retrieval augmented generation RAG, where the model, like it looks at the particular problem at hand, and it generates a query that says, a particular data, this and that data would be very helpful in answering. It goes to the RAG, pulls the data from a large data set that is not possible to store into the context window, and the model uses this data. And so if you look at this picture, every single aspect of this vision is something that can benefit significantly from what we are good at in Web3 space. If you look at about anything specific to data, decentralized storage is a big direction today that people research and deploy. And you do want your data to be stored in a way that is not where you don't depend on someone going down or banning you, and then your data is gone. So decentralized storage, I think, is a very important direction. We do have reliable centralized storages today. You can store an S3, and S3 is a standard, and that works very well until you accidentally, do something that contradicts some weird AWS policy, or someone calls AWS support and says that they are you, and they know the last 4 digits of your credit card, and your account is gone forever. Then I think very interesting direction is data monetization networks, and also decentralized data annotation. This is something I personally spend a lot of time in the last couple of years. Data monetization, data annotation, there's a lot of small transactions, value transfer, something that works very well in Web3, doesn't work at all outside of it. Then decentralized inference. Generally, inference today is, if you want to do inference of open source models, this is a relatively complex problem, and there are very few inference providers who are fast and reliable. And decentralized inference, I think, we use with a couple of companies. I will mention them in a second. And decentralized inference work very well today. And then there is many other aspects. And for each of those, and decentralized compute, which I did an outline before, for each of those, there is at least one, sometimes a couple of companies in the NEAR ecosystem that are driving forward those areas. And I want to, in this particular talk, I want to give you a couple of examples. So within NEAR AI, and when we work with those companies, we do a lot of experimentation, a lot of small projects, and we actively use many of those companies, and I want to give several examples of interesting applications. One example is something that one of my colleagues is working on at NEAR AI, where we pull a data set from Masa. Masa is it's a data annotation, synthetic data company. They have many data sets that you can use, and so we put them into the vector store database, and then you can build agents that can very quickly give you insights into the Twitter data. And like end-to-end, the whole development takes less than an hour of work to pull it all together using Hyperbolic and Masa. So that's a pretty cool example of how you can build something very quickly, fully and entirely using only open source and decentralized solutions. Another example, this one I will, not this one, but this one is very interesting as well. So we have, since forever, Ilya and I were dreaming of being the first people to solve competitive programming. OpenAI and DeepMind are getting very close, so it's our dream has a chance of never being achieved, but we're working on it still, and we have a pipeline. We have a massive data annotation. So data annotation here, I don't have a label of a company because we do it ourselves, but it is fully decentralized, running on a NEAR-based platform. And then we store all the annotated data and lore on Machina, and then we train the model. Exhibits is one of the decentralized training solutions, right? So again, the whole loop is only using decentralized open source solutions, and we can train pretty cool models. Finally, I wanted to mention a very interesting application of a very interesting architectural decision on NEAR, which is not intentional. That decision was made way before AI became a big thing, at least the latest push. But because NEAR is a sharded system, very frequently you will have transactions sending receipts to other shards and waiting for them. So within NEAR, within the blockchain itself, the concept of sort of pausing a transaction on one shard, waiting for something to happen and resuming is very native to the blockchain, unlike all other blockchains where transactions are synchronous and happen within a single block. Recently, several months ago, NEAR pushed a new feature which allows you to yield it to a sort of to pause the transaction, send an external event, wait for something happening externally to the blockchain, and then that external event will trigger the transaction to continue. And there's an interesting contract called ShieldGPT. ShieldGPT is a smart contract which operates on a relatively small amount of money, and it invests that money depending using the output of a block of an LLM. And so people need to go to that LLM and convince that LLM to buy their token, right? So people who want to shield their token go to LLM, shield it, and that contract will buy their token if they're good enough at convincing an LLM. It's a terrible way to manage your portfolio, but it's a very fun application, and it uses yield resume, right? So the transaction to buy or to sell a token will initiate on blockchain, wait, then it will trigger an LLM external to NEAR to do something. It will pause the transaction for several blocks until an LLM pings it back. Okay, cool. So I want to show you a demo of something that I think is pretty cool. Let me see if I can figure it out. Yep. No? All here. Okay. So the demo I'm about to show is, I think in 2024, it's not as impressive as it would have been even a year ago, nor it is very novel. If you're familiar with the concept, with a project called WebSim, this is inspired by WebSim, but it has a twist, and the twist I think is very important. And then after I show you the demo, I would like to talk about the implications of what I'm showing. So this is an agent that is built by one of my colleagues, and the entire video is real time, so it's not sped up. And because of that, there's going to be 10-second delays. I will be talking over to keep you guys entertained. But it's to explain you what you're looking at. It's an agent which builds a website live, right? So you have a sort of prompt window on top, and on the bottom you see the website it generates, right? And I'm asking it here to show me all the proposals in a DAO called Learn NEAR. Learn NEAR is one of the DAOs on Sputnik DAO on NEAR. And you can see that 12 seconds in, I already have a prototype that pulls the data from the contract. And this relative to, so the important aspect of this agent is that this agent has access to all the on-chain data, meaning that it has information about the schema of any contract, like the arguments and return type of every endpoint of every smart contract. It has a curated mapping from contract names to the contract IDs, right? And so you could have noticed that I said DAO. I didn't say which contract it is, right? It found the contract. It found the endpoints on the contract. Then I asked it to show details when it's clicked, and the last thing I asked it to do was to make it smaller. And then you see, each of them is clickable. And now I will ask it to make, if I click on the username, open it on NEAR blocks. Again, notice this is actually something very interesting that unlike everything else, which is stored in the vector database and is accessible through RAG, the URL format of NEAR blocks is not. And you will notice that it does work. When I click on the username, it does open on NEAR blocks, and this is the right URL. So Llama just happens to know. So I guess the cutoff date of Llama is after NEAR blocks launching. So Llama just happens to know the format of the URL, which is pretty sick. Right, and so I continue iterating, and by the end of this video, I will have a fully functional application which allows me to watch all the smart contracts. And unfortunately, when I was recording the video, there was no way to send transactions, and I didn't update it. But later, me and my colleague Vadim, we updated the application to also send proposals. So what I want to highlight here is not, I think in 2024, it's very hard to impress people with what AI can do, right? I think it is still very impressive that you can build a fully functional application in under 3 minutes using natural language, which is relatively non-technical, right? At no point I mentioned anything that is something that, like a technically savvy business person wouldn't understand. All right, so I have a full, I see what passed, what failed, how many votes. It's all clickable and interactive. And I think it has very interesting implications for the future. And the biggest implication, and the one I want to emphasize, is that I started this talk by saying that we want to deploy the AI, we want to deploy artificial intelligence applications in such a way that people are in control of their data. However, the modern world is fundamentally shaped in such a way that it is almost impossible to create applications, whether it's AI, Web3, Web2, doesn't matter, where people are in control of data. Because at the end of the day, your first contact with any application begins on the website or in the app, which are fully controlled by the distributor, right? And it takes extreme amount of effort to make sure that the website or an application you're using doesn't do something with your data that you don't want to happen, right? Because like with the website, if you enter something, you have no control over what the website will do, right? And even if like at some point you downloaded the whole website, analyze it, the next time you open it, there's no guarantee that it didn't change. Same applies to the applications. And that is about to change, right? Because that is the future of how people will be interacting with applications. Instead of using a front end built by the application developer, as long as the API exists and it's sufficiently documented, you just build the application with your exact requirements on the spot. In like today it works in a single-digit minutes, and it will only be getting faster, right? And that does solve the problem of your data leaving your computer and your device in a way that you don't want it to leave, right? Because you are fully in control of the application that you're interacting with. It solves many other problems, which they are lesser problems, but still existing today and affecting our lives. One of them is that over the years, the applications were getting less and less sophisticated, more and more optimizing for the majority, and less tailoring towards power users. Again, this is about to change. As a power user, as long as API exists, I can build app of any sophistication for my needs using something like this. And I think that's Keynote? Nope. Oh, Chrome. Okay. And this is something we're investing heavily into. I can do it. Oh. I need the slideshow. Okay. This is something we're investing very heavily within NEAR. We call it an AI developer. And we think that empowering people to build applications on the fly, on the spot, is a great way to solve many problems that exist with the current with the current way of distributing applications. So that is not limited to just front ends. We work on the fly creation of smart contracts, on the fly creations of middleware, and it's also a great way to solve the problem of the small number of applications in Web3. So today, the number of developers in the Web3 is like it's a small 6-digit number, and it's very small relative to the total number of developers in the world. And the reason for that is that there's a chicken and egg problem. Until we have users, developers do not come to Web3, and without developers, there is not many applications. Without applications, users don't have much to do. But once application development becomes much simpler, it becomes much more accessible to larger number of smaller teams, to larger number of less technical people, especially on blockchain. It's very important for people to build a contract, you need to be extremely sophisticated to be able to think through security. That will be fully delegated eventually to agents. And this is examples, all examples of, at least I believe those are all examples of fully generated applications using the AI developer. So that's the fun future of Web3. That concludes my talk. I hope you guys had fun. If you're coming to the main event, to TOKEN2049, I will have a similar keynote on day after tomorrow, but that one will be more focused on long term, so please come visit. And if you don't have plans yet tomorrow, if you don't go to the Sweat Economy event, we have a show and tell. And many projects that I showed on that slide, they will be showing live demos. No PPTX, only live action. In particular, I will be there, and that video that I showed you, that was polished, and it took me a couple attempts. I will be doing that live. So I will be failing a lot, and it's going to be fun. So please come visit. Should be a lot of, should be good time. Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations. I think we've been following you for quite some time, and you have a fantastic job. It's two questions. In the first slide, you talked about decentralizing data. The most common thing to say and I would say that you rather distribute data for high availability of data itself and security of data itself. How do you reconcile the other aspects of AI, which is model training, model selection, fine-tuning, the variance, the decay that happens? But it's a continuous process. And very rarely you or anybody else has talked about as to how do we achieve that level of deployment through the Web3 narratives, right? Which is, I own the data, but if I give it up for training, then I give it up. There's hardly any reutilization of the data, even though I may own it. I'd love to get what's your perspective in addressing the entire life cycle of AI per se, than just transactional elements of blockchains.
Yeah, that's a good question. So let me begin with the hardest one. If I have a data set, I want to monetize it, but I don't want to lose it. Doing that in decentralized fashion, I think there's a couple of interesting projects, but I don't think there's anything that truly works. Depending on your security model, if you believe in SGX, I think more or less fully solves the problem, but you have to trust NVIDIA or Intel, depending on which secure enclave you're using. Without secure enclaves, I think it's extremely hard. I guess the main directions are the same as usual. So you either try to use some homomorphic encryption and try to make it work fast. I don't know what's the latest, if it is viable today or not. Or you try to do multi-party computation. But the problem with data is that even if it's split among many people, it only takes that many of them to collude for your data to be taken away from you. So I think as of today, I think that is longer term, and there is no good solution. Primarily, I think the most interesting applications early on will be not fully decentralized. It will be a centralized entity that you trust not to steal your data. That will be training on their resources. When it comes to model training, I think one of the most interesting things, I skipped it right now, but generally, we will, like as I said, for the sustainable path towards user-owned AI, we will need models of the next generation, so like GPT-5 sized models trained in a decentralized fashion, right? We cannot, we don't want the future in which the existence of user-owned AI fully dependent on Facebook continuing to, publish their models in open source. So we need some sort of decentralized or community-driven way of training them. And I don't think it works with someone owning the cluster of 30,000 GPUs, because whomever that entity is, again, we're fully dependent on that entity, right? So we do need a way to train those models on the decentralized clusters with a slower network, which is today not a solved problem, but the progress is very rapid. So I believe that like next year, that might be already a reality, right? And then it's going to be a very interesting question of orchestrating, because you will still need those 40,000, 30,000 H100s, right? So you need to orchestrate pulling resources together, monetizing that model later to, whomever pulled the resources, they need to make up the money that they invested into this project. So that's going to be a very interesting problem to solve once we have a way to train that model to begin with. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.